Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Have you ever stopped to consider if your budget is healthy and if it's working for you instead of against you? And so today we're going to be looking at some of the telltale signs that you might have a broken budget that is holding you back from your financial potential. Now we're also going to be sharing 8 questions that you can ask to determine if yours is working or not. Hey friend, you are listening to the SeedTime Money Podcast, and this year we're sharing our 40-week checklist to all the action steps, strategies, and biblical insights that we use to go from super broke, paycheck to paycheck living to reaching our biggest financial goal of being able to give away $1 million by age 40 by God's wonderful grace, and then also living a life of what we call true financial freedom. So we are so glad that you're here. We're glad that you're listening.
Yeah.
And we're super excited to talk about this topic because we get questions about this all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Right?
Well, yeah. And for as kind of hands-off financially as I have historically been, I really love the budget.
Which is so funny.
It is a topic that I actually
because everybody
I'm a little bit passionate about, which is, it's hilarious.
Okay, so I think everybody who knows you or even knows you a little bit, like listening to the podcast once in a while or something,
sure,
sees you on some YouTube videos would be like, that's the one that doesn't do the budget. It's the girl, the cute blonde. She's the one who doesn't do the budget. The nerdy one, he's the one who loves the spreadsheets, and...
Yeah, I really like it.
I think it's so fun that you have whatever. And maybe you should tell that story about the tires.
Yes.
Do you want to start there?
For sure. Yeah, so this is kind of what got me on board because I was the whole don't tie me down, don't tell me what I can do and what I can't do type of thing.
A budget's going to take my freedom. It's going to restrict me. It's going to take my
freedom, right. But what has happened instead is I feel so much more freedom with it in place.
Yeah.
And so right after we got married, I don't know, maybe 6 months in. So this was when Bob was like, fasting meals in quotes.
Super broke. Guys.
Things were really, really tight. And I remember it was like, one of the tires blew or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, we need to get new tires now. And when we were like on what, $45 a week grocery budget type of thing. It's like, now we got to buy new tires. And I just remember being like, it was like the wind got knocked out of me. I mean, I felt like I can't breathe. It feels like there's something sitting on my chest. Like it was this panic of how are we going to possibly afford this? And so we start talking about it and Bob's like, yeah, because when you get tires, you're like, I just need one tire. And they're like, well, no, you need 2
Can't buy
for
one.
Sure. But you really need 4. And you're like, whoa.
Why don't we just replace that spare too while we're at it? Let's just go with 5.
Just get you a new car? A whole new car is probably what you need. I mean, it feels like this bill expands as soon as you take it in. And so I was doing that whole like, how are we going to pay for this thing? And starting to freak out in front of Bob a little bit. And he says, Linda, there's money already sitting there. And I was like, wait, what? And you're like, yeah, like we've been putting money aside because we knew something like this was going to happen. So there's money just sitting there waiting to be spent. And I was like, marry me, Bob.
I became very attractive in that moment.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was one of those things that was just like, this is life-changing. This is completely life-changing because all of a sudden the panic that I felt was immediately gone.
Yeah.
And even though some other things were tight, when there was something that was like, we have to do it, we don't know how we're going to do it, and then there was an immediate solution that had, it was like our former selves were setting us up to succeed in this area. Well, it was your former self because I didn't know what was going on. I was just going along with it. But it was like all of a sudden I felt like, oh my gosh, so this means we can still buy groceries. This means I still have of the very little bit of spending money that I had. I mean, it just was like, it didn't affect any of the other things.
And we didn't have to choose.
Right.
We didn't have to choose, all right, do we buy groceries this week or do we have to take the bus? Like it was
Exactly.
It solved that for us.
It solved that problem. And it was a huge relief, a huge
from
just
that
load
moment,
off my back.
Like, because prior to that, I remember like me trying to set up a budget, because I hadn't budgeted for many years at the beginning either, and I was a mess. But anyway, I remember trying to convince you and get you on board, and it was like pulling teeth a little bit. But after that moment, like you, since
I was on board real quick.
Yeah, have been on board. And I think that's the thing. You just need to experience the benefits of it. And so we've seen so many people, because I've been doing this for a long time, I've seen plenty of people budget the wrong way. And you can make your life miserable. I mean, not only that, but just really succeed at the wrong things financially, or just like, there's so many things you can do wrong with it. And that's where we really love empowering you to do it the right way and to create a budget. The way I love referring to it, I remember Jesse Meacham talking about this, and he called it a lifestyle design blueprint.
I love that.
And it's so true, because when you see it that way, it's like, this is a vehicle to get me to the lifestyle that I want to live. And so if you want to live a lifestyle where you have plenty of money to be generous and to give like crazy to everyone around you, or you want to be able to go on a vacation every year, or you want to be able to do X, Y, or Z or the other thing, this is the vehicle that gets you there.
Yeah.
If you don't have a vehicle, you're going to have a hard time reaching any of those specific goals or whatever that lifestyle is that you want to be living. And so that's why this is so important. And so if you're listening to this, maybe you already have one, and maybe you're like, I got all that, I'm already sold, Bob. And that's fine. But what I do want to talk about now is 7 of the reasons. I want to talk about, I guess, 7 of the most common reasons why many budgets will fail. And the first one is having unrealistic expectations.
Yes. Because, here's the thing, is I feel like from me being in the, I don't want to do this, don't tie me down, don't tell me what I can do camp, coming over to this side of like being really excited and passionate about it. Like, I had a friend who told us she was just her and her husband were going to sit down and start doing our method, which is the real money method. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me know how it goes. Like, let me know if you have any questions. Call me, FaceTime me, whatever you need. Like, I was so excited because we have worked through so much stuff in order to get to a place where it works for both of us, not just one of us. And that is such a huge key that I don't know if that's in, a little bit further down, but like, this first one is such a big deal, especially when there's 2 people coming in. But even if you're single and you're just doing this on your own, it's like you have to set a realistic expectation of how this is going to go. Yeah. So,
well, we were talking to a student maybe 6 months ago or something who came in one of our classes, and then she came and reached out and was talking to us afterwards, and basically said, what did she say? She spending a couple thousand.
I figured out how much we're spending on groceries, because we in our in our True Financial Freedom class, we make people write down how much do you think you're spending on gas, groceries, or like maybe not gas, but like transportation, groceries, and eating out. Just what you think. And then we're going to have you calculate it and find out for sure. So she came back the week after we did this. She thought she knew what she was spending. And when she actually looked and found out, she was like, that's it. No one's eating anything anymore. She was like, we're cutting this down by, down to 25% of what we've been spending. And so Bob and I were like, okay, whoa. I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Because I think essentially it was, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think it was something to the effect of we're going from like a $2,000 a month grocery spending historically to now down to $500.
Yeah.
To which, whenever I see that, because we've seen this so much play out, it's hard to sustain that. And so we prefer a measured approach.
Yes, there's a tendency to do that because it's a reactive move. It's like, I see this as a problem, and so I'm going to swing completely the other direction to try and compensate. And so what ends up happening is everyone is mad. Especially when it comes to food. It's like, oh my gosh, you're telling me I can't eat now? Like, this is terrible. And so you swing the other direction, but really what needs to happen is if your grocery budget is at $2,000 and you want to try getting it down, go down to $1,800. See how that feels. See if that's, and if you feel like you can keep going, like keep going down, but like from $2,000 to $500 is just too big of a swing. And what's going to happen is you're going to budget all your money out. You're going to make everything perfect and all the math is going to add up. And then you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so you're going to
not
overspend.
be able to sustain it. Like, because this is the thing. Every time I see that play out, it's someone who has all the momentum. And the problem is that momentum runs out.
It dies.
So you have to be able to create a system and an approach that you can sustain for the long term. So you need to think of it less as running a sprint, 100-yard dash, and more of how do I run a marathon?
Yeah.
And so I just wrote about this recently, but like the pace of a sprinter is very different than a marathon runner. And so you want to be able to take slower strides that you know that you can hit and you can stay consistent with.
Well, and another question I just asked myself recently, because I'm doing something that I'm trying to make long term, but it's a hard one for me. And I just asked myself, how can I make it so that I want to do this again next month?
That's great. That's a great question.
How can I go into this thinking, okay, I'm going to do it again next month. So, and want to do it. Like, try and get some of the benefits out without making myself so crazy. Because that's what it was. One of those areas where I was like, every time I try to do this, I make myself crazy, and then I freak out, and then I can't follow through. So in this instance, how can I make it so I want to do it again next month?
Yeah.
And I am. It's next month, and I'm going for it.
Yeah, that's great. All right, second on this list is a lack of specificity. Okay, and so this would basically be like having super vague budgeting categories. And so like this might be a budgeting category for food, honestly. Because I think
it's eating out and groceries.
Eating out and groceries and I don't know, maybe other stuff too. But like but the problem with that, and again, like, and I'm not an advocate for like having 45 different categories, but the problem is when you have too many different, we had gas and groceries, which would have encompassed food early on in a marriage.
No, it was gas and spending money.
Well, I know, but at some point we had gas and groceries too.
We did have gas and groceries.
Yeah, and like, anyway, you can try this out and see what works best for you, but we've encountered a lot of people who have these big bucket categories that just cause problems because of that lack of specificity.
Well, and even my friend was saying she was going to separate. She was like, I'm going to have my own category for me and the kids. So she has 4 kids. And so now I was like, don't do it that way, because now you're going to have to choose, do I want to spend money on my kids or do I want to spend money on myself?
Yep.
And you're going to not be excited either way. You're either going to feel guilty because you spent it on yourself, or you're going to feel mad because you didn't get to spend enough on yourself. It's like, just separate it out. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, okay. You see what's there, and it makes it really clear. And then you don't ever feel guilty.
And I think that's what's so amazing about this, is that literally just the categorization of something. It's such a like subtle, intangible, like little thing of just putting this visual wall up that just completely changes things. And I think that's just absolutely crazy. But anyway, bottom line, be as specific as you can without going crazy and getting 40 categories. Like that's what we're trying to do here. All right, number 3 is neglecting to adjust for changes. Okay?
Yep.
So life is unpredictable, like we know. Expenses fluctuate. Inflation changes things. Gas goes up, groceries go up, or whatever. And so like you need to have a way to be able to adjust these and change them. And we've made lots of tweaks to our budget over the last year or so, because our income has changed a lot as well. And so we're having to adjust for that.
Pretty much monthly. Like every time we get paid is when we're adjusting.
You know, and if you have a set paycheck or whatever, this obviously is easier when you get the same amount every month. But like, you know, we run a business and things change from month to month. And so anyway, so this is just a really important part, that you have the ability and are able to adjust for whatever is changing.
Yeah.
Right. Number 4 on this list is impulse purchases. Okay. And so when you don't have some sort of plan for discretionary spending, like these are the things that can quickly blow your budget. So because impulse spending, let's be real, it's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
So you need a way for it to happen.
For the spenders, for sure. Like, it happens to you, but it definitely happens to me. And so, yeah, if you feel like there's no way to cover that, no way to pay for some of that stuff, that puts a lot of stress on you and on a marriage, because it turns into this like, how dare you? And like it really tears you apart instead of bringing you together more.
Yeah, and this is the principle of like a guardrail. You know what I mean? So you're driving on a road on the mountain, and it has a shoulder, so it has the lines. You drive within the lines, and there's a little bit of room on the right of that, which is a shoulder, and maybe has that rumble strip. And then you have a guardrail, and then you fall off the cliff and die. And so...
okay. Right.
And so the point is that that guardrail is just a wall to bump up into to keep you from the really, really bad thing. You know what I mean? And so being able to have that in place is really, really helpful. And in the shoulder is just another way of doing that. And so what this looks like financially in terms of a budget is having some margin. You know what I mean? Like when you budget everything down to the penny and there's not any room for any margin, any unexpected expense like we were just talking about, or any impulse purchases, like it's like going up on this road on the mountain where the paint on the line is literally at the edge of the cliff. And if you go over 1 inch, you fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're trying to avoid. Like let's create some margin, create a buffer, because it's inevitable that some point your tire might go over that line and you don't want to die because it does,
Right.
Or in this metaphor here, blow your budget just because it does,
Exactly. No, and I mean, there's also those times when it's like, this is too good of a deal to pass up. This is too good of like, I've been searching for this thing for the last 6 years and I just found it and it's on major sale. And, that happens.
Is this a purse?
I'm not talking about a purse, but I'm like, there are home items and there's,
I feel like you just bought something. What did you buy that was $200 for $18 or something?
What?
You bought something that was $200 and you got it for $18 somewhere or something.
I
Something
don't know,
like that.
but
You
that's
literally
great.
just told me this a week ago.
But even still, yeah, okay. So a $200 thing and you get it for $18. It's like, okay, well, what if you're out of the $18? It's like that's where the buffer needs to come in. Like there's got to be some way to pay for those things that is like, I've been wanting this forever and here it is right before me. All I need is $18.
Yeah, I mean, and I would even go beyond that because you're still talking about a want, but there are needs.
Sure.
Sure.
Like, okay, let's do this. A better example, we talk about it in the book, is the bubble Taurus. We did not need a third car, but you were like, this is a $1,000 insurance policy.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, that is a little bit of a bigger one, but there's something to be said there.
We're not going to get into the story now. You can read in the book.
Yeah, there's something to be said there where it's like an opportunity comes for something that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Number 5, not setting aside money for fun stuff. All right, Linda. Take it.
Big one.
I mean, this ties into the previous one. I think they're related.
Right. Okay. Because, there are times when I just need to, somebody was calling it an emotional support coffee. She was like, you wake up and despite your best efforts, your coffee that you make in the morning is disgusting and you just want to cry and you need to put on your big dark sunglasses and just go get yourself an emotional support coffee. I was like, this is so true. It's so true. But there are just those times when you're like, I want to, my friend has a painting thing coming up. She's like, come over. We're going to do this. She's got this woman teaching a little workshop and it's to paint. And it's like, I just want to go do this thing. And it's $35 or whatever. And this is a perfect thing for that. It's like, it's something I just want to do. I don't need it. It's just something I want to do. Yeah. And I'm going to enjoy it. And it's going to bring me joy. You need to be able to have money to spend on things that are just fun. Yeah. Or it will not work long term. Or maybe it'll work for one spouse, but it won't work for the other.
Yeah. And so this is, while it's related to the previous point, it is different because I think this is more or I view this more as building it into your budget.
Absolutely.
And so what that looks like is instead of all your categories just being all the have-tos, like I have to buy groceries, I have to pay bills, I have to pay a car payment, I have to blah, blah, blah. What are the want-tos?
Yes.
The want-to, I mean, when we first moved to town here, we wanted to go get coffee every Saturday morning and explore one of the amazing coffee shops in Nashville. And so we set money aside to do that. Or maybe your want-to is, I want to play golf every weekend, if at all possible. And, maybe whatever the thing is, what is the want-to?
Yeah.
And build that into it. And that makes it fun because every month you get paid and you drop money into that account and now you have an excuse to go to do the thing.
And your want-tos can change too. So we have personal spending. Is that one of them in the future? Yeah,
Wait,
we have personal spending money, and Bob sometimes will want to spend that on a pickleball paddle, and sometimes he wants to spend it on plants for the garden or a trellis. Do you know what I mean? Like from month to month, those things change, and so planning to have the things that are just, this is fun money that I can do this with, is really important.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah. All right. Number 7 or 6 on this list actually is a lack of emergency fund. Okay.
Take it away, Bob.
So a lot of these kind of tie and connect together. There's a lot of overlap between what we're talking about here, but I do think there are points worth differentiating. And so having an emergency fund.
So let's differentiate this from the tires.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like that.
So let's do that.
Very much could have been an emergency fund thing. It actually wasn't. Like we had a separate category specifically for car expenses because we had 2 older cars. And so this is called a sinking fund.
Yeah.
And basically where it's like, that on average, you're going to have to spend $1,000, $1,500 a year to maintain a car. Let's just say it's $1,200 a year to maintain the car. So then each month you just add $100 to this account because that expense is going to come. The tires are going to run out or something is going to have to be fixed. And so rather than just being surprised one day and be like, oh man,
$1,200 bill,
you just start building it up. And this is what we had done outside of our emergency fund, the emergency fund being the really unexpected thing where it's like, man, didn't see that coming. But the point is they're both good and they serve different purposes. But emergency fund covers those things that you aren't expecting. And so again, we know that the car is going to need tires every few years,
right?
But we don't know about
the water heater is going to break,
or the thing that drained our emergency fund a couple of years ago was the medical issue. Like you had an unexpected medical thing that mostly drained our emergency fund, which I was not excited about, but at the same time, I was very thankful that it was there and it didn't go on a credit card. And it's like, how nice is that?
Yeah.
So the point is, if you don't have that, it's a lot easier to break your budget and mess it up.
Yes.
All right. Number 7 is not reviewing the budget regularly. And regularly looks different because I think when you're first starting out, it probably needs to be more frequent. But when you've done it for years and years and years and you have a good rhythm.
And then you're getting paid the same amount and all that stuff. But there are things like, I remember one time I came to you and I was like, the kids don't have any shoes. And you were like, well, do they have enough money in their category? I'm like, no, it's just, there's not enough in there. And so that was when it was like, why don't we look at the budget as a whole and figure out where are we putting this money, and does that still make sense? Maybe the kids need more money in their clothing fund or whatever.
We had added kids, they'd gotten older, the expenses increased, and so we just needed to adjust it.
Yeah.
But we didn't know until there was a little bit of pressure to where you're feeling like it's constantly feeling
working.
Too tight, and so then we go back and reevaluate and adjust some categories.
Yeah.
And I would say monthly is our rhythm of talking about, the budget and if we need to make any adjustments. And occasionally maybe a little bit more than that. We'll have a one-off conversation. But you just need to have some way to regularly pay attention to what's going on. Because again, had we not done that, what happens is that kids category, every single month you're just overspending and it just gets to the point. It's like, what is the point of even budgeting? Because it's we're not following the rules anymore that we've created for ourselves. We're ignoring the guardrails we created, Right.
But within this, I mean, it's really not difficult. So I know we're putting all these like, oh, these are the rules that we have, but it's just to keep it running like a well-oiled machine.
Yep.
Like we really do not spend that much time talking about our budget and our finances. Do you think?
No. nothing like we used to.
Like there are people who have to, I know that I have some friends who like literally have to call their husband every time they want to make a purchase because they're unsure of what's going on. And that just doesn't happen with us. Like we have a pulse on what's going on all the time because we've set up a system that just works really well for us.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let's talk about this. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, we need some help. I have 2 suggestions for you. Okay. And this is based on, honestly, nearly 2 decades of trying things and research and, working
through a lot.
2,000 plus students. Like we've just seen it all. I feel like we've pretty much tried it all personally as well as, anyway, that's where this is coming from. Okay. So if you're struggling or you don't have any budget at all, and we've maybe convinced you that, okay, maybe I should try something. The cheapest and the quickest thing is get our book. If you don't have money to buy it, go to the library and borrow it. Simple Money, Rich Life. Read chapter 7, and where we talk about how to set up a 1-category budget. Okay. This is the fastest on-ramp to starting to get some of the benefits of the budget. I call it the 80-20 budgeting, where it's like you're getting 80% of the benefits with only doing 20% of the work. Yeah. And you're setting up 1 category. And so this is for those who aren't doing anything or just want like the by far simplest solution on this whole thing.
First step, really.
Yeah. Second thing, okay? So if you are using some sort of app or software or spreadsheet and it's just not working for you, in which we're going to get to some questions for you to be able to ask through in a minute, this is where we recommend checking out our Real Money Method, what we call our unbudgeting course. We call it unbudgeting because it is so different than all the other things that we've tried. Just fundamentally, the approach is just completely different. And so it is ridiculously simple, and it has succeeded for us and thousands of our students now when everything else failed. I can't tell you how many students we have who I use this app, but I just could never get it to work and blah, blah. And my wife and I were always fighting. We were never on the same page and blah, blah, all that stuff. And so this is the thing. It removes
those problems.
Yeah, this is the thing that has allowed us. So any couple, it's so good because you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and there's some good apps out there. And so I think that it's interesting. What I think the conclusion I've come to is that an app is actually not the right way to do it.
It doesn't matter if it's an app. It has to be simple. Like, it has to be simple. And the problem with almost every budgeting thing out there is it is either complex from the beginning or it becomes complex. Whereas this always stays simple.
Always simple.
It can't become complex. And anyway, so that would be the other recommendation. If you have something that's not working, check that out as well. Feel free to send us a DM at SeedTime. Let us know if you have any questions about it. Happy to send you a coupon code.
Yeah.
Just say you're listening to the podcast and love to bless you with that. But all right. So I want to talk a little bit about why this is important in terms of this 40-week checklist that we are working through right now. And in this checklist that for us helped us reach our biggest financial goal, which was reaching, being able to give 7 figures by age 40. That was a goal that, from the days that we were dating, like we were praying about and dreaming about. And so to see God do that and that we got to be a part of it was just so thrilling and exciting. But how this plays into all of that is because I went back and did like some rough math and rough calculations just to kind of get some numbers here. But according to my calculations on this, I estimate that having a working budget in place the way that we have for the last 15 years versus had we been doing nothing, I feel very confident that it has saved us over $100,000 over that period that otherwise would have just been wasted.
Wow.
And I say that knowing that like there are plenty of people listening to this who it would be even greater than that, because we've had students who have come back to us who have literally saved $10,000-$20,000 in a single year once they got their working budget going. So I know,
which is insane.
It's mind blowing when you think about it. You're like, there's no way.
There's no way. That's what most people think is there's no way.
It's so true. It just is so true. It's painfully true. We've seen it a lot. But anyway, and so without that, I can confidently say that we wouldn't have been able to reach that goal that we were so excited about reaching. if it weren't for this. So this was a significant part. And so that's why this is part of this 40 week checklist. So what I want you to do, your action item now, I want to go through these 8 questions, and I want you to ask yourself these questions as honestly as can be to evaluate whether or not you actually have a working budget or not. Because I think so many of us, it's like, well, this is just a thing I've done because it's what my grandma did, or, I got Quicken, 40 years ago, and I've just continued with Quicken ever since. And it's like, that's fine if it's working for you. But if it's not, then why don't you consider some other options? And again, I don't care if you use our thing, like just, it might be worth trying something else.
This is if it is not working for you. Yeah. That's what this is for, is if you are using a method and it's not working, or if you're not using anything. Yeah. This is where we can help you a lot.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go through these questions quickly. Okay. So the first question is, am I consistently meeting my financial goals? Okay. So when you set a goal to pay off a debt by X amount of time, or to save up for a vacation, or to be able to save X amount for retirement or kids' college, or whatever the thing is, like, are you meeting those goals? That's a good question to ask. Number 2, do I frequently overspend in certain categories? Okay. So look at your budget, or do you just frequently overblow certain categories? If you are, that means there's a problem. Okay. Right. And this is something that ebbs and flows, and so we've noticed over the last 6-9 months or so, with inflation in groceries, which is higher than what the government's reporting, it's like our grocery budget, it's like we're just having a hard time keeping that thing. So
we're really struggling.
The budget is cracking, and we need to fix that foundation and make some tweaks. That's what that means, right?
Yep.
Number 3, is your emergency fund growing? Okay. And so again, hopefully it is. Hopefully you're continuing to add to it. And this is something where it's like, all right, that's when we want to be seeing that. And if it's not, and if you're not able to, then it's like, all right, something needs to be fixed. Okay. Number 4, how often do I dip into savings for regular recurring expenses? Yeah.
So water, electric.
Yeah. I mean, or whatever the thing is. If it is buying groceries, like if you are having to buy groceries by pulling into your emergency fund every month, it's like there's a problem that we need to fix, we need to address, and some of these things can be solved with, all right, I'm not making enough money, so I need to figure out how to make more money. Right. But at the end of the day, like there's always 2 different knobs to turn here. So you can lower expenses, you can increase income. And you can only lower expenses to a certain point. There becomes a point where you can't move any further in that, which is why I'm a big fan of increasing your income. But at the same time, there's often more opportunity to lower expenses than I think most people think. Because everybody thinks there's nothing else to cut, there's nothing else to trim. Right. Everyone thinks that. I mean, everyone thinks that. I've talked to a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of students. It's just the way it is. Number 5, am I able to cover unexpected expenses comfortably? And this kind of ties into the emergency fund a little bit. But again, emergency fund or the buffer.
Like, is it ever comfortable?
Yeah. Whether or not it's comfortable. The point is, like the tires, like that's a great example of that.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know that was comfortable, but for me, that was comfortable because we have that sinking fund set up to handle that. Right. All right. Number 6, do I feel financially stressed?
Yeah. That is a big one.
And I think that the important thing to hear isn't because if your budget is tight, just because your income is tight, that's going to cause stress. So I'm not necessarily talking about that, but I'm talking more about that the budget itself should be reducing financial stress, not increasing it.
Yes.
If you're doing it right, it should be reducing the level of financial stress that you have.
100%.
And that's what we're after. How do we use this as a tool, a lifestyle design tool, to help us reduce our financial stress and reach our goals? That's the point. Number 7, is there enough flexibility in my budget? Okay. And again, this comes back to some of the margin, having some guardrail there rather than blowing things out. But again, like that's something that we want to see in there. And then the last question, number 8, do I have a clear understanding of where my money is going each month? This is we probably should have started with this one because
we really should have.
This is the number one reason why I think people who don't budget would be so much better off if they did. Because this is a far more complicated question to answer now than it ever was.
Right.
Given technology and Venmo
and all
and
the different
subscriptions and PayPal and Cash App and everything moving money all around over the place,
Well, and there's the stewardship component in there, which is am I using this? Am I doing the right thing with this money? Am I doing the right thing and before God? But then there's also the idea of having that, like, why doesn't it feel like I can ever fill in the blank? I always want to go play golf every month. And why does it feel like I can only play once a month? And I feel like we're working really hard and we're making enough money. Where is it all going? Like, there's something there.
Well, and if you're asking that question, I can guarantee you that you have a lot of waste that is happening.
But when we say waste, what we mean is you're spending on things you don't care about.
Yep.
Like, I think that is the big differentiator.
It's not us telling you what to spend on.
Yes, exactly. Like, I think people hear the word waste and they're like, don't you tell me how to...
Don't you judge my avocado toast.
You're right. We don't want to judge it, but you should be judging it for yourself. And if it does not matter to you if you buy, all the little things at Target every month, but that's just what is ending up happening. But it really does matter to you if you're able to,
get avocado toast.
Get avocado toast
coffee.
And get a coffee with your friend or an emotionally supportive coffee or whatever. Then you need to be able to make that switch and go, oh, I've been spending it on this thing that I don't care about. And that's why I don't feel like I don't have the money for the thing I do care about.
Yeah, and the quick example here that I'll just give from our instance is I don't care about having a brand new car, okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm fine not having a $400 or $500 a month car payment and driving a 10-year-old car that still is nice. But I just don't care about having a brand new car. I care so much more about us being able to go on 3 or 4 nice date nights and spending money on that. And some people are like, why would you spend $100 on a meal eating out? And it's like, that's fine, to each his or her own.
Right.
But to me, that's more important than having a brand new car. So I'd rather drive our 8-year-old car to the nice restaurant and have a nice dinner.
Yeah. So for us, wasting money would be on a brand new car.
Yeah.
It might not be the same for you, and that's fine. The waste is decided by the people who are running the budget.
That's what it should be.
That's what it should be.
Not what some financial guru is yelling at you about and telling you what you should and shouldn't spend your money on, right? So don't let anyone else run your financial life. You get to make the decisions. This is your money. You are the steward. God has entrusted you to manage it, and you can't delegate that to anyone else.
Yes.
You have to be responsible and manage it.
And it depends on where you live and what your needs are and what your family looks like. And there's just so many different factors that Bob and I don't know anything about.
Yep.
So we should not be in the position of telling you what to do. We can give you ideas, things to think about, and suggestions.
And that's what we do.
Yes.
And if you decide you want to spend whatever, what was the example we used in the book? I think it was luxury ice.
Money on $200 a month on luxury ice.
You can buy these luxury ice cubes and get them delivered.
What's so funny is that Bob was like, this is the most ridiculous thing when he wrote that. And then he found out what luxury ice was. And he was like, actually, I do really like that.
Well, I haven't bought it, but we went to this restaurant and I got this really fancy drink and it came with this
clear ice cube.
That I'm like, I don't know what the heck this is, but it is amazing. And it is just
real excited about
fascinating. So anyway, we are going to cheer you on with whatever weird purchases you want to make.
Exactly.
As long as you're the one making the decision, it's not being dictated to by someone else. So with all that, share this with a friend. If you're enjoying the podcast, let us know on Instagram at SeedTime. Send us a message. If you want to find out,
leave a review.
Please leave a review. That's super
helpful
for us getting the word out. And and share with friends. You might have found out about this show with a friend, so we appreciate you passing it along.
Yeah.
We don't have a marketing budget to advertise the podcast or anything like that. So your help in kind of spreading the word is greatly appreciated. But that's all we have for you today. So have a great rest of the one, and we will see you next time. Adios.